So I mentioned this way back in part 1, but with a new Sonic movie coming out and Shadow being the main focus, it was a great idea to kind of do a little bit of brand cohesion with the movies to celebrate Shadow as a whole and create a game that celebrates him. On top of that, Shadow has been out of the limelight, at least in the game space, for quite some time, so this could be used as a sort of capstone reminder of what this character is in the game space. Really, accident or not, probably wasn't. This is a great bit of cross-promotion material, you know? Hell, they even did a DLC which allows you to play as the movie Shadow in the game. But yes, this is the final part in a 3-part series in which we look at every version of Sonic Generations. Part 1 we looked at the HD version, Part 2 we looked at the 3DS version, and Part 3 we're looking at the Sonic X Shadow Generations. If you like the kind of things we do here, please like and subscribe. It does a lot for the channel, it helps tremendously. We got a lot of support in our last video, so I want to thank you guys tremendously for that help. And I thought I'd mention it now while it was on my mind instead of trying to fit it into the end of the video where I just kind of try to figure it out there. So thank you, sorry for that little self-promotion, but on to the actual video now. Before we get into the real meat and potatoes, the Shadow portion of this video, we do have to look at the remaster of Sonic Generations. So first off, it is a graphical up-res of the original game, though on the PC port it is less noticeable, at least for me it was. I don't know if it's just me. If anyone actually did notice a graphical difference on PC, let me know, I'm very curious. The load times are faster, they at least seem faster, and I do enjoy that change up. Though, there is a really strange thing to notice here, at least on PC. When you launch the game, you have two options, Shadow or Sonic, right? And when you launch Sonic Generations, it definitely just like loads up a different program in it. It's almost like it treats itself as a launcher between the two. There's probably something about the coding and the older version of the Hedgehog engine, yada yada yada, that I don't quite understand on why that had to be the case, but it's kind of weird and extremely noticeable. Let's see, what else did they change? Yes, so for controls, to match Frontiers, they changed it so the R2 RT is now the boost instead of what it was before. On top of that, that also is the spin dash for the classic Sonic controls. Classic Sonic can also do the drop dash now. Not a bad thing or a good thing, but I have noticed that they keep re-adding drop dash retroactively to these older titles. I guess it was a great inclusion in Sonic Mania though. When you collect a red ring now, a HUD pops up to show you what red ring you collected in the stage. I definitely think this is a great inclusion. Other Sonic titles do have this feature, and I'm happy to see it appear in Sonic Generations. Speaking of collecting, they put 3 hidden chows per stage now. I don't know why they made that change up. Maybe because people keep like asking for chows and they're giving us this not Chao Garden thing. We really just want a Chao Garden. Can we just have that again? I don't know why it's so hard for you to just put it in the game. Hell, just make an app and people would eat that up. I wasn't even that big of a fan of the Chao Garden. I just know so many people love it. Just put it back. It gives your game a lot more replayability and makes those particular fans happy. Just do it, guys. Otherwise, when it comes down to gameplay, this is the exact same experience, for better or worse. Yeah, I'm talking about the time meter in particular. They could have fixed this boss if they really wanted to, but they didn't. It's the exact same boss you know and hate. Oh, but funny enough, in some cases this may be better for those long-term Sonic fans. It all depends on where you stand here. They did change the script up a bit for Sonic Generations. I don't really have a strong opinion one way or another about it, but they did revoice some of these lines, and they reanimated some of these like cutscenes as well. Though I will say, for me personally, a huge improvement is the after you save a character cutscene, it would have a character just ranting at Sonic, and then Sonic would just stand there and pose. Now Sonic actually says something back, and it actually feels like a conversation at all, versus before, so that's an improvement if you ask me. The last big improvement I can think of is actually the museum room, oddly enough. So there was that secret area that I mentioned in part 1 that allowed you to see these like models of the individual figures that was like a cross promotion with these toys that never really came to be, right? All those models are actually in there now. You don't have to type in any codes or anything. They're just there for you to enjoy. And that's kind of it. That's everything I have in my list of changes between the two versions of Sonic Generations. If there's anything I missed, please let me know. I'd love to know what just wasn't mentioned here and what I missed out on. But without any more hesitation, we're now ready to begin the actual video. On to Shadow Generations. Well, kinda. See, first we have to stop by YouTube. Yeah, this very website. You see, they made a full animation called Sonic X Shadow Generations Dark Beginnings. And this is a really cool animation that was built to give a prelude to the adventure that we get in the game. Though there is some continuity error. In particular, there are some differences as to why Shadow goes to the Ark in the beginning of the game. In the animation, they establish that Shadow has some kind of premonition that Black Doom is returning, and therefore he needs to go to the Ark and investigate, right? In the game, however, they established that Gun saw something and Shadow went to the Ark to investigate under their direction. Other than that though, I heavily recommend watching this animation before playing the game. If anything, it's very well put together and fun to watch. Also, it's like 15 minutes in total, so you're not losing much time. Either way, doesn't truly matter. At the end of the day, Shadow is on the Ark to investigate something because something is up. Just vague enough that a story can begin from it without any real problem. And hey, investigating was the correct move because look at this, the hallway's all wibbly, that's not normal, right? Shadow follows through and we're on to the first stage, the Ark. I can say without a doubt, I believe this is the best version of the boost style gameplay we've seen yet. You have high speed gameplay but good platforming control for the main character without having to shift into a 2D perspective. Older Boost games relied on those 2D segments to give you a classic platforming feel. While this game doesn't need to rely on that, you maintain in 3D while having that good platforming control. Shadow doesn't feel like a race car like Sonic has in previous Boost games. You have full control over this character, and I never felt like a death was out of my hands, and I never felt out of control for a moment. Though don't think he's just a better feeling Sonic, they did actually make some changes to his gameplay beyond that to his core. There is no lightspeed dash and there is no drifting in this game. You have your jumps and your homing attacks, though the homing attack is not built the same. Instead, Shadow will teleport to his target, and this is more than just a aesthetic thing. They use this in gameplay. There'll be a moment where there's like a laser gate or something, and they'll have an enemy on the other side, and in order for Shadow to get to that enemy, or get to the other side of that gate, he has to homing attack, which teleports Shadow directly to that enemy, which is on the other side, and then you can continue to do your platforming throughout the stage. I believe the official term for that ability is called Chaos Snap. There's the Chaos Spear, which Shadow will throw and it'll like stun the enemy. For standard gameplay, I did not use it much, though the speedrunners love using this ability. It allows them to make great distances really fast. Watch a speedrun if you want, it's kinda cool. The big power Shadow has is Chaos Control though. You have this little meter on the bottom. When it gets filled up, you press the button and then Shadow does the Chaos Control. This effectively freezes time, stops enemies from moving, stops the stage timer from moving, and allows you to run on certain obstacles that may be moving, like these missiles. Instead of you just getting hit when you touch them, now you can actually run on them because they're frozen. You also get this light rail that you can only travel when you are in Chaos Control, and basically it's a light speed dash, it's just a different variant of it. Another cool boon to the Chaos Control is that it will fill up your boost gauge if you're running low. For regular Sonic gameplay, both destroying enemies and collecting rings will fill up your boost gauge. For Shadow though, only collecting rings will fill up your boost gauge, while defeating enemies will fill up that Chaos gauge that allows you to use Chaos Control. Ah yes, and we're near the end of the stage, in which story happens. That's right, the world is changing and now we're at a city-like location, very similar to Radical Highway or something, who knows. And look, there's Black Doom! Black Doom has officially returned! Yeah, about half of the stages in this game have these like Black Doom segments in which the stage itself warps into Radical Highway for some strange reason. It's always Radical Highway, every time. And by the end you have to hit Black Doom to collect the Shadow the Hedgehog symbol from the game Shadow the Hedgehog? I don't know why they used that. That's very fourth wall-y. This was never a symbol that mattered in the game Shadow the Hedgehog. It's just a symbol that was used to like advertise and like symbolize the game of Shadow the Hedgehog, and I guess Shadow himself, sort of. But it was never referenced after this game or before this game, and now it's here, and I don't know why it's An odd, like, meta choice they made here. I'd almost rather if Shadow just collected the box to Shadow the Hedgehog instead of the symbol. Either way, you hit Black Doom, you get the symbol, you get to the end of the stage, and now you're on to the next cutscene. Two big things are established here. One is the fake emerald that Tails made is now just sitting on a platform, which is odd because the last time we saw it, Sonic was throwing it inside of the Eclipse Cannon. And two is that the time meter shows up, and Shadow then wakes up inside of a white void, just like Sonic did. This white space, again, will be the setting of Shadow's adventure throughout this game. The white space here is what it always should have been to begin with. It is a full 3D map in which you can explore all sorts of secrets, cool collectibles, side activities. It's a lot going on. There's a lot of stuff in this space that you can really do and enjoy. It's not like years of gameplay or anything, we're only looking at a couple hours in total, but it is cool that it's here, you know. Every zone in this game is going to have 2 acts. Act 1 will always be a full 3D stage, and Act 2, for the most part, is going to be a 2.5D stage. Unlike base Sonic generations, I never found the 2D stages in this title to drag. Now, also because they weren't trying to imitate the classic 2D Sonics of years past, they were able to be more experimental with the 2D angling. Heck, even in the other Boost games, when you get to a 2D segment, they don't really play with the camera too much, but in these 2D stages, the camera can go all over the place, allowing for a more robust feeling than in previous games. Unlike the red rings you collect in Sonic's portion of the game, in Shadow you collect these 3 little circles, right? These 3 little keys. These keys allow you to unlock certain chests in the open world, which gives you all sorts of different collectibles like art, music, story synopses. I really like this because it gives stage progression and stage collectibles a organic connection to the white space that you also explore. Now this 2D stage though, in particular, I don't know, I felt so gaslit while playing this stage. While you're doing it naturally, you unlock these cool powers, right? Where Shadow's able to fly and he has these cool wings, it's all sorts of cool. So I spent so much of my gameplay, my first playthrough, trying to figure out how to activate this. Come to find, you can't activate this at all until the end game. So why'd they give it to me so early on just for a taste? Just for that little, like, this is what you can be later on? Like, sure, do that, except maybe clarify it to me as a gamer that this isn't something I can use now, that I only unlock it later on. A little bit more clarification would have been nice. That's all I'm saying. But I guess this is a good transition to get into the Doom powers, right? So first off, the power that they showcased there is called the Doom Wings. You unlock that right before the final stage in the game, and it's basically the supersonic version of Shadow for this game, because Shadow can't collect all the Chaos Emeralds, he doesn't have a super form. He has the Doom Wing form. It allows him to be immortal to most hits, as well as fly through every stage. The big thing here, just like Supersonic, is that you can only activate it once you have 50 rings or more, and while it's activated, you do lose your rings until you reach 0, and then you lose your form until you regather the rings, and the cycle continues. There's the Doom Spear, which acts just like the Chaos Spear, but allows you to multi-target, and that's the only difference. It is the first ability you get though, so it's a little bit more basic. There's Doom Surf, which enables Shadow to travel on water, and that's it. Instead of having Shadow run on water like Sonic, Shadow needs this ooey gooey surfboard to appear. The last Doom power, and the most divisive one, is the Doom Morph. It's a power that turns Shadow into this squid-like thing that allows him to travel across these purple, like, floor areas. It's activated only when you homing attack these, like, glowing purple orbs, and then you turn into the squid, and as soon as you get off of that purple floor, you turn back into normal Shadow. So it's only used in very specific spots. Also, when you are a squid, you can then jump from purple orb to purple orb to kind of slingshot your way through the stages. It's a little awkward and a little weird, but once you get used to it, it's fine. Again, you collect all these abilities as you play through the game. You beat a stage, you collect these little symbols, you walk up to the obelisk, it then unlocks a power that allows you to progress through the story, and so on and so forth until you beat the game. In front of every zone, you'll have a different character that Shadow can talk to and interact with, from Omega to Big the Cat. Wait a minute, stop for a second. Did I see that right? Did Shadow smile when Big the Cat showed up? He did smile. Shadow likes Big the Cat, who would have known? Alrighty, so after Space Colony Arc, we got our Doom Spears, and now we're on to the next zone, and we're looking at Rail Canyon from Sonic Heroes. I do have a soft spot for Sonic Heroes. It is one of my favorite early 3D Sonic games for sure. I had a lot of enjoyment playing it then, and seeing it get revived here, I can't lie, I got a smile on my face when I first saw it. From the sunset vista to that music, it really got me going, right? Really brought me back to that Sonic Heroes enjoyment. The only real negative complaint I can have here is I wish they put more Bullet Station into this zone, considering it's only one kind of theme they got going. They could have combined it into one, and that would have been a lot more cooler, you know? And yes, Rail Canyon is one of the stages that has one of those radical highway segments, and it does negatively impact the replay value of the stage. At least those segments of the game are fun to play. It's just a little annoying to deal with a long, cutscene segment in the middle of my gameplay experience. I wish there was a way to skip the cutscenes for replay, you know? And that unlocks our transition to the next segment of the game when we unlock the boss, or the area to get to the next. Oh, I completely forgot! This is when you unlock the Doom Blast ability. Yes, it's an ability I barely use unless I'm forced to, and that's why I forgot it existed. Basically, it's a way to pummel an enemy and then throw them off into the distance, which then you teleport to that enemy's location. It's like a homing attack with extra steps. I would put it right above Doom Morph in my tier list of shadow abilities in this game. Either way, you walk up to the boss gate, and oh no, you need keys. How do you get these keys? Suddenly, these extra challenges appear around the zones you've just completed. Complete these challenges and you unlock the keys that then allow you to get to the boss. Here comes one of my biggest critiques about this game, and this game's really good, and these critiques aren't that many, so the ones that are here matter the most. Alright, you hear me? You digging me? This isn't a one-time demonstration of a game mechanic. This is part of the gameplay cycle. You complete the zones, you have to go to the gate for them to open up the challenges for you to collect the keys. Those challenges should appear after you complete the zone to begin with, that way you don't have to back travel over and over again. It gets kind of annoying. They do add fast travel to kind of mitigate that a bit, but it is still a process I frankly don't enjoy much. And again, this is a form of padding to extend the game length, and I don't mind it too much because these challenges are fun at least. But it is a little bit different than what it is in base Sonic Generations. In base Generations, you need to do one challenge per zone. In this game, each act per zone has 2 challenges. You have to complete both challenges to unlock the key. So Act 1, Challenge 2 have to be done to collect the key. Then Act 2, Challenge 1, Challenge 2 have to be done to collect the key. A cool little detail I found though is when you complete one challenge, the barrier around the key weakens, and you can visibly see the difference in that barrier. So then when you do the second challenge, the barrier is completely gone, and then you can just collect the key. I like that visual representation you get there. Now, because I do like the 3D stages more than the 2D stages, I tend to do the 2D challenges first just to get them out of the way, so I can take my time to really enjoy the 3D challenges. They're all the same length, there's nothing really different about it. It's just like eating your vegetables before getting to your steak, you know? We did the challenges, we got the keys, and now we're on to the boss. The first boss is the Bio-Lizard. This is probably the best fit the Bio-Lizard has ever had. Fits way more here than it did in Sonic Generations for the 3DS. And I will say the boss fight is way more intense and fun to do. The first phase of this boss plays out just the way we know, as it is in Sonic Adventure 2. But after that, this boss ramps up with a whole new series of ideas, and I think they did a really good job experimenting with what the idea of the Bio-Lizard was and really putting it on its head. There'll be a theme here, but I don't hate any of the bosses in this game. They're all done really well, and that's surprising for a Sonic game, because there tends to be a couple of duds here or there, you know? There's not a single one I have a problem with myself. But after you beat the boss, the world expands, you have more to explore, and we get visited by the Ghost of Christmas Past. By that I mean Black Doom shows up to give us a good old chinwag. Basically, it's just him establishing that he's using the Time Eater anomaly to his advantage to gain the power he's looking to gain faster than what he was originally planning to do. And like I said, the white space opens up and now we have 2 zones that we can approach. We have Kingdom Valley and we have Sunset Heights. Kingdom Valley is from Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, and I am so pleased to say this is 1, my favorite zone in this game. 2, does not have a Black Doom Radical Highway segment, so there's nothing that breaks you out of that momentum, and no like in-level transition cutscene to ruin the flow. When you beat Kingdom Valley though, you do get that cutscene with Big the Cat and you see Shadow smile, look at that friendship, it's beautiful. And then we move over to Sunset Heights from Sonic Forces. And I gotta say, they did a really good job recreating a Sonic Forces stage, because Sonic Forces is a whole other mind-melding game that I'm not talking about today. So we don't have to worry about it. If I were to be a narrative nitpicky guy here, there is a question on when does this take place? Because Sonic Generations takes place before the events of Sonic Forces, then why is Shadow visiting a Shadow Forces stage? But also, strange story nitpick, this is a version of the anomaly that Black Doom is actively altering, so maybe that's part of it. It's not really explained, and honestly it doesn't truly matter. But after you beat the stage, you do finally meet up with Gerald and Maria Robotnik. And it is a beautiful, cute little touching reunion. And this is probably my second biggest nitpick of this game. We do not get enough of these character dynamics. In this cutscene, Shadow establishes a thought process of maybe I can alter their future. And they don't ever really touch on it again until the end where Shadow is about to say something. And then Gerald's like, no, don't tell us, it can alter things. I feel like there should have been more of an attempt on Shadow's side to like progress the story in some different fashion to give us more characterization. But here we are, we did both zones, now we have to get our way all the way to the boss gate, so then it can establish that now we do the challenge gates, so then we can collect the keys, so we can take on the second boss. Yeah, you notice how this is kind of annoying to do every time? And our next boss fight is the Metal Overlord. That's right, the super-powered Metal Sonic fight. Except you'll be on the Doom Surf, and for some reason you're on the ocean. I don't think we were fighting this guy in the ocean in the original game, we were kind of in the sky, and I really do wish this boss was also in the sky, because that's a way more cooler set piece. But they want to use Doom Surf, and they want to reuse the assets that they already made for Chemical Plant and Sonic Generations. Just look at that background, they just recolored it. So whatever, they did what they did, and here we are. Metal Overlord. Again, the boss itself is fine, it's a whole new version of this boss, entirely different mechanics, and I really do find it cool if you try to use Chaos Control on him. He laughs it off and says, haha, I can do that too, because he scanned your data in the original Sonic Heroes, he knows how to do Chaos Control. Really cool piece of lore gameplay connection right there. After you beat the boss, you get a little bit of a lore background for those who didn't play Shadow the Hedgehog. They established that Black Doom's DNA was used to create Shadow himself, and they're kind of establishing that Black Doom's current goal is to either A, make Shadow an Ultimate Warrior, or B, use Shadow as like a new host body for his. And that's why as you go and you play through the game, you get all these Doom powers, because that's Doom's way of assimilating Shadow. After all these lore nuggets get dropped, you're now ready to continue the game, and you can now unlock the next Doom power, the Doom Morph, and get to the next stage, Chaos Island from Sonic Frontiers. Again, this is a stage from Sonic's future, but whatever. And also, Shadow was never there in Chaos Island unless you're trying to tell us he was. We never saw it, we don't know. It doesn't make much sense, and also Chaos Island is, to me, the weakest stage in the game, probably because of how heavily it relies on Doom Morph as an ability, and by now it's solely into the game, you're teaching us a new mechanic that we're barely going to use for the rest of the game. It's a little annoying to deal with, but here we are, ready for Chaos Island and using Doom Morph for the first time. To complement Chaos Island though, this is the weakest stage in the game, and it's way better than Planet Wisp ever was in Sonic Generations, so bravo! Hell, this being the weakest stage, it's still a fun stage to play. It's just the weakest out of all these amazing stages. I don't actually hate any one of these. So again, bravo. When we finish Act 2, somehow we land in Sonic's version of Sonic Generations, in which Shadow and Sonic now have to fight because, that happens in Sonic Generations. Sonic does win the altercation. It is a really cool cutscene to watch, but I can kind of see why Shadow hates Sonic in this. Sonic comes off as kind of an annoying little prick, But Sonic wins and runs off with the Chaos Emerald. Oh no, how is Shadow able to use his Chaos powers without the Chaos Emerald? Well, if you remember the beginning of the game, Shadow was able to collect that fake emerald Tails made, right? So now he has the real emerald and the fake one, and he just did a little swappy swap, and Sonic ended up taking the fake emerald. So that means Shadow still has the real Chaos Emerald to use all the Chaos powers you know and love for the rest of the game. Just in time for the last boss gate to appear. Where is it, may you add? Underground. Almost as if time itself is trying to hide this unknown time anomaly. Keep it buried and locked so nobody ever sees it and so it doesn't escape. But before we get to see what it is, we have to walk up to the gate. It then shows us that the challenges are now unlocked. We have to make our way all the way back to the challenges, do the challenges, and make our way all the way back to the gate. Annoying, right? But now we can unlock the gate and it's Mephiles the Dark from Sonic 06. I really like that poll. That was a nice idea. And I do really like how it seems like time itself is trying to hide this because it's not supposed to exist. Mephiles was erased. And in the boss, his dialogue is him screaming about wanting to exist. He just wants to be alive again. He just wants to be again. Boss itself is fine enough. It heavily relies on Doom Morph as the big mechanic for it. And this is a slight nitpick. It's not anyone's fault. I'm sorry. I'm just not used to it. It's not Dan Green voicing Mephiles, and it feels wrong because it should be Dan Green. It always needs to be Dan Green, and nothing to knock on the voice actor here. It just feels off to me. But he did a fine performance and everything was great. Just weird. And with that, we're entering the end game. Bam! Let's go. The giant sphere moon that's been in the sky with all the eyeball tentacles that's been staring at you the entire game now opens up to the end, the nightmare zone, the doom zone. Everything turns red. You have a nice little Radical Highway themed bridge that takes you all the way up. You have to make your way through. And once you get to the top, you jump in and you're in Radical Highway proper. Woo! More Radical Highway! But for real, guys, I thought it was such a missed opportunity to not use, anything from Shadow the Hedgehog stage-wise. This could have been the Black Comet, and that would have been thematic for the game, that would have been thematic for Shadow, and that would have been thematic for Black Doom. But no, we just chose Radical Highway because it's the resources we have, and it's Shadow's most popular stage, maybe? I don't know. I don't know anyone that truly thinks that that's Shadow's best stage, but maybe it is. Maybe I'm missing something. But why didn't you use Black Comet at all, huh? Nothing? Okay, thanks. Anyways, there's a little bit of story stuff I'm missing here, but honestly, this game is so short that if you want to experience it, it's 3 hours max. So please give it a shot. But really, I'm just skipping out on the whole, Shadow's falling for the dark side, and then Maria goes, no, believe in yourself, and he's like, you're right, I should believe in myself. And then he goes off to save the day, not with anger, but with light and justice. The regular story beats of an anti-hero. Act 1 of Radical Highway, the first half of Act 1, is replicating the similar aesthetic of the standard Radical Highway. But once you get to a certain point, the game automatically makes you turn into Doomwing mode, and that's when the stage becomes something incredibly different really fast. And there's a really cool thing about this zone in general, is that there are multiple paths, right, like any Sonic game. But there's a path made for the Doomwings, or you can play the entire stage without the Doomwings, and it's both done well. Also, really good points. Act 2, they knew this was a big climactic moment, so Act 2 is not a 2D stage. This is the only zone that has 2 3D acts. And I found that really cool. It built up the hype, and honestly, can you guys do that more often? I love 3D platformers. I love 2D platformers. But, hear me out. I want just a pure 3D Sonic game for once. It's been a very long time. since we had a Sonic game that was entirely 3D. And I feel like you guys know how to do it now. Your next title, you have no excuse. You have proven you could develop really strong, really good 3D stages without having to rely on 2D. I believe in you. I believe in you, Sonic Team. And I don't say that often. At the end of Act 2, though, we then start the final boss encounter. We fight the Devil Doom, sorry. We fight Devil Doom. Guess I'm a little hungry there. The first phase of Devil Doom is very much a, hey, look at all your abilities that you've learned throughout the game, showcase them, use them in this fight. Except they only really rely on Doom Surf and Doom Morph. You don't really have to worry about Doom Sphere or any of the other abilities. Those are the only two they focus on. Once we get to the second phase, the Neo Devil Doom, it's the supersonic fight. You're now in your Doomwing mode and you're flying at him and you're just kind of dodging things he's throwing at you, and you're trying to get to his gigantic eyeball and slap him in the face. And that's it. I do like both versions or both parts of this fight, and in general this is probably, this is going to be a weird take, a weird thing to say, overall probably my favorite final boss fight in a Sonic game, gameplay wise at least, in quite some time. Narratively, I've liked Perfect Chaos more than this, and I've liked other Final Encounters more, narratively. But gameplay-wise, this might be my favorite final boss I've had in a Sonic game. Yeah, I don't know if that's... I think that might be true. At least in a 3D Sonic game, this is my favorite final boss I've ever had. I don't know. What do you guys think? What are your favorite fights in Sonic? 2D, 3D, narratively, or gameplay-wise? I'd like to hear it. Either way, slap him in the eye, he goes, "Oh, how could this be? I was supposed to win, blah 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 blah." Shadow says something cool and edgy, beats him up, and that's it. The specific version of the white space that Black Doom created is now getting kind of destroyed, meaning Maria and Jill Robotnik are returning back to their place in time. Sad, I know, but it is what it is. And then Shadow goes and says his goodbyes, he runs off. Along the way, Rouge the Bat will swap the Chaos Emeralds for Sonic. That way Sonic will have the real Chaos Emerald, not the fake Chaos Emerald that Shadow gave him before. You know, that way the end of that game can happen properly. And yeah, end credits. It ends with Shadow heading towards that final battle so he can stand in front of that little ledge and say, "You got this, Sonic." So then Sonic can power up and fight the Time Eater, you know. We've seen this before, we know where this all ends. This has been one hell of a game. Let's see, I have a list here of different things. Let's see if there's anything here that I've missed that I wanted to mention. First thing, by default on PC, this game will only work with an Xbox controller and not a DualSense controller. This does not mean it's impossible though. Basically what you have to do is you have to go into Steam inputs and enable it, so then a DualSense controller can work. It's dumb that you have to do a little bit of a workaround. I wish this was just patched into the game proper. Sega, if you're listening, hey, I like to use my DualSense without messing with settings sometimes, but it's easy enough to figure out if you know how to play with the Steam settings. This game graphically looks really cool. I did like the touches here or there, but in particular, the human models, I think, do a very good job translating between the realistic models and the goofy models we had in Sonic Unleashed. I think these are really nice in-betweenies. Very good. Though, I do have to say, the fur texture, up close, looks a little strange on Shadow. And really the last thing I wanted to mention that I didn't get through in the video, I truly do think they did a good job capturing that mid-2000s angst that radiated Shadow's entire personality back in the day, you know? The cool, hip, dark and mysterious atmosphere that you'd get from games like Jak 2 or The Matrix, right? They did a good job building that. I think that's it. I think that's everything I wanted to say that wasn't mentioned in the main portion of the video. I'm sure there's something or things I have missed. If it comes up in the comments, I'll obviously respond with whatever I missed out on. But seriously, this has been a really cool project. I've liked looking at every version of Sonic Generations. I like making an entire video for it instead of trying to putting it all into one and just kind of smushing it together. I liked giving every title its own time to breathe so I could really look at it as its own separate entity. I had a lot of fun. That also being said, I don't know what I'm gonna look at next. I may have a couple ideas, but if anyone has anything in mind, any suggestions, anything you want me to cover, please put in the comments, let me know. I'd be glad to at least give it a thought. You know, I might not be able to do it now, I might be able to do it later. Who knows? I just want to see what you guys are thinking, what you guys are feeling. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of thing. It's really just me ranting at a computer screen for like a million years. And yeah, that's it. See you all next time. Peace out, friends.